St Edern's Church. Bodedern is a medieval parish church in the village of Bodedern in Anglesey, North Wales. Although St Edern established a church in the area in the 6th century, the oldest parts of the present building date from the 14th century. Subsequent alterations include the addition of some windows in the 15th century, and a chancel, transept and porch in the 19th century, when the nave walls were largely rebuilt. Stained glass was also inserted into the windows of the chancel and transept. The church contains a 6th-century inscribed stone found near the village, a medieval font, and some 17th-century decorated wooden panels from Jesus College, Oxford, which was formerly connected with the church. St Edern's also owns 3 pieces of 19th-century church silverware, but a silver chalice dated 1574 was lost sometime during the 19th century. An 18th-century gallery at the west end rests on 2 oak crossbeams, one of which was previously used to support the rood loft. The church is still used for worship by the Church in Wales, one of 9 in a combined parish. But as of 2013 there has not been a vicar in the parish since September 2009. It is a Grade 2 * listed building, a national designation given to particularly important buildings of more than special interest, in particular because it is regarded as a good example of a late medieval church. Its character maintained in the late 19th century restoration and rebuilding work, and retaining some of the medieval fabric and windows. History and location. Bodedern is a village in Anglesey, Wales, about 5 miles from the port town of Holyhead. Eternus, known in Welsh as St Edern or sometimes in a variant spelling as St Edern, is recorded in the Welsh genealogies as the son of Beli-ap-Rhyn. He appears as Edern ap Nudd, one of the knights of King Arthur, in the Mabinogion. He established a church in the area in the 6th century, perhaps at Pen Eglwys Edern, a site about half a mile away from the present building. Excavations that are in the early 1970s revealed a cemetery from the 5th or 6th century. The village takes its name from the saint. The Welsh prefix bod means dwelling of. The present building stands in a churchyard in the centre of Bodedern on the north side of Church Street. St Edern's is medieval in origin, with later additions and alterations. The oldest part is the nave, which has been described as essentially 14th century, although it was rebuilt in 1871 during restoration work under Henry Kennedy, architect of the Diocese of Bangor. It was one of many churches in Anglesey to be rebuilt or restored in the 19th century. Few remained untouched, and Kennedy was responsible for much of the work carried out from the 1840s to the 1890s. The north wall was rebuilt above the tops of the windows, whereas only the bottom 2 to 3 feet of the south wall was left unaltered. During this work, some of the nave windows inserted in the 15th century were repositioned, and a chancel, a porch and a transept side chapel were added. The extensive work cost about £1,000. St Edern's is still used for worship by the Church in Wales, as one of 9 parish churches in the combined benefice of Bodedern with Llanfyllw. The 9 churches do not have an incumbent priest as of 2013, and have not had one since September 2009. The church is within the deanery of Nilfanion and Nilfanion, the Archdeaconry of Bangor, and the Diocese of Bangor. The church was at one time an ecclesiastical dependency of St Sibe's, Holyhead. The right of patronage was bequeathed to Jesus College, Oxford, in 1648. The college was the patron of the parish until 1920, when the Welsh Church Act 1914 came into force and the church in Wales was disestablished. In 1849, the writer Samuel Lewis noted that the college and Queen Anne's Bounty had recently each paid £400 for a new parsonage. He also recorded that the college received a rent charge of £476 and 8 shillings each year from the parish instead of receiving the tithes. The college donated £200 towards the restoration work in 1871. Architecture and fittings. Construction and layout. St Edern's is built in the Perpendicular style using local stone, with blocks of cut sandstone as the external face. The roof is made from slate with stone copings and has a bell cote at the west end, with one bell. There is one external buttress to the southeast of the nave to help support the weight of the building, and there are crosses on the roof of the porch and at the east end of the nave and chancel roofs. The church's entrance is an arched doorway in the porch, with a 15th century pointed inner door set in a square frame described by one architectural guide as boldly moulded. The roof of the porch reuses medieval wood. The nave, which has 5 bays, measures 59 feet 6 inches by 16 feet 9 inches. A gallery at the west end is supported by 2 oak cross beams, one of which has the date of 1777 inscribed. According to one 19th century writer, an old rood loft had previously rested on one of the beams supporting the gallery. The late medieval internal roof timbers are exposed. The chancel, which is 17 by 16 feet, is raised 2 steps above the nave and is separated from it by a Victorian pointed arch. There is also a Victorian arch between the nave and the north transept. The second of the 3 steps leading up from the chancel to the sanctuary at the east end is decorated with encaustic tiles, with the Welsh words Golchafefwynwyr Mundinified with Athala with Amglachina. Windows. There are 5 windows on the south side of the nave. The one to the west of the porch is set in a pointed frame, and the others are in square frames. The middle and easternmost of the 5 date originally from the 15th century but have been repositioned. The other 3 are 19th century. On the north side, there is a pointed doorway from the early 14th century, with a 19th century window to the west and 2 repositioned 15th century windows with 2 lights at the east. The west wall has a repositioned 15th century window. The chancel's east window is also 15th century, with 3 lights headed by trefoils and decorated with tracery. It has 19th century glass depicting the Ascension. The south side of the chancel and the north transept have 19th century windows. The south chancel window has 3 lights with tracery headed by cinquefoils, with geometric patterns of glass. The east and south chancel stained glass is in memory of the wife, son, and daughter of Hugh Wyn-Jones, who died in the mid-19th century. He was the first priest to be vicar of the parish. His predecessors had been curates, a lower position. He is depicted as Simeon, who in Luke's Gospel receives Jesus and his family when they visit the Temple of Jerusalem after the birth of Jesus. The north transept has a 3-light window to the north depicting St Edern by Franz Mayer and Amp Co. There are also windows with 2 lights on the east and west sides of the transept, one of which has a window from 1951 by Celtic Studios. Panel work and other fittings. St Edern's has several pieces of 17th century panel work, possibly of Dutch origin. There is a softwood panel screen between the nave and chancel, decorated with carved flowers and fruit, with a frieze of acanthus leaf. The rear doss has further carved paneling, as does the upper section of the rectangular pulpit, a reading desk, the communion rail and a table. The panels of the communion rail, set between wooden columns decorated with fruit, flowers and ribbons, are topped by a long balustrade. also decorated with acanthus leaf. The panels came from Jesus College, possibly from the college chapel, which was renovated in 1864 by the architect G. E. Street, or from a disused gallery in the library. The balustrade previously ran along the tops of the chapel's pews. The college's archivist has described the chancel as containing a startling assemblage of panels, patched together in jigsaw fashion, and heavily varnished. A stone dating from the 6th century and inscribed with the name Urgony is kept in the transept. It was discovered during excavations of the Pen Eglwys at Edern site in 1972. The font, which is medieval in date, is a plain octagonal bowl set on an octagonal column. Memorials include a chunky Grecian memorial to an officer of the Bengal Native Infantry who died in 1835, a tablet in neoclassical style from 1839, and a slate tablet to an army officer who died in 1914. A survey by the Royal Commission on Ancient and Historical Monuments in Wales and Monmouthshire in 1937 also noted an oak communion table and 2 oak chairs of simple design, both from the early 18th century, and various memorials inside and outside the church from the 17th and 18th centuries. A survey of church plate within the Bangor diocese in 1906 recorded 3 silver items: a plain chalice dated 1887 to 88, a paten dated 1803 to 04, and a flagon inscribed Bodedern 1809. The author noted that church records from 1776 to 1831 included mention of another silver chalice, dated 1574, with other references to a flagon and a paten made from pewter, but these were no longer to be found. Churchyard. The churchyard contains the war grave of a Royal Field Artillery soldier of World War I. Assessment. The church has national recognition and statutory protection from alteration as it has been designated as a Grade II * listed building, the second highest of the 3 grades of listing, designating particularly important buildings of more than special interest. It was given this status on the 5th of April 1971 because it was regarded as a good example of a late medieval church. Its character maintained in the late 19th century restoration and rebuilding work, and retaining some of the medieval fabric and windows. CADW also notes some finely detailed fittings including the chancel screen, rear-dost pulpit and reading desk with 17th century carved panels, and also a late 18th century gallery at the west end. There are various descriptions of the church as it stood before Kennedy's 1871 rebuilding. In 1833, the Anglesey antiquarian Angara Radcliffe described the church as a small ancient structure, displaying some good architectural details. She also noted that it contained some fine monuments to members of local families. The Welsh politician and church historian Sir Stephen Glynn visited the church in 1851. He said that the church was little superior in size or architecture to the generality of Anglesey churches, but added that it was in a neat and creditable state. He also commented upon the neat and uniform pews. In 1862, the clergyman and antiquarian Harry Longville Jones wrote that the church was of good work, and with the details of doors and windows carefully elaborated. Quote, he compared the east window to that at St Mary's Church, Llanfair yng Gornwy, and noted that there was an ambria recess in the east wall beneath the window.